All right, folks, welcome to Shout Out from the Pit. I'm the Old Rucker, a.k.a. Bob. Or is it Bob, a.k.a. the Old Rucker? We're having a table jam tonight where I've got a few friends here, and we're going to just talk about some topics related to recovery. And if you're listening to this show, remember, it's not just about alcohol and drugs. It's about anything that's keeping you from the sunlight of the spirit. So as you listen to the show, though some of us identify with illicits or alcohol or other things, keep in mind that the solution is pretty much the same as far as how we work a program. All right, well, without further ado, I'm going to have my friends introduce themselves. You've heard me and some of us refer to the tribe. And remember, our tribe is a lot of guys, and this is just tonight. There's just 5 of us from the tribe, and we'll just go ahead and introduce ourselves.
Hey guys, it's Tony. Glad to be here.
Hey, love you, Tay-Tay.
This is Dwight. I'm just happy to be here.
This is Brett. Also very happy to be here.
Josh, what's up, everybody?
All right. All right, so we talked pre-show about some areas that we could share with you guys our thoughts on particular subjects, and we've kind of decided to look at this vague umbrella idea of immersion into recovery. And I'm going to pass the mic to Brother Brett and let him kick us off with that idea.
Well, thank you, Bob. This is Brett. I'm a very grateful recovering alcoholic. I've got a few years under my belt, and what kind of surprised me with this, I know some of you guys have heard me talk about this before, but I was well into my recovery, multiple years, and it's just one of those things that always amazes me how I learn new things. Things jump out at me that I'd never seen before. And this was kind of one of them. And it really, for as many times as certainly myself going to a lot of different meetings have heard how it works, which is usually pretty standard for most types of recovery type meetings to kick off on. It wasn't literally until just a couple years ago that this kind of thought, and actually it wasn't even so much a thought, but just this realization popped out at me on within those first 5 paragraphs of how it works. And it's really getting back to what Bob said, talking about, the immersion into a program, and right here and how it works, it's talking about literally, for our gambling friends out there, going all in on the program. But it says it, I count 7 different times just in those 5 paragraphs before you get to basically the steps in how it works in the big book. So if I kind of go through them, the first one, thoroughly followed our path. The second one follows that with completely give themselves to this simple program. The next one was willing to go to any length to get it. One after that was fearless and thorough from the very start. And then right after that is let go absolutely. Then, of course, there's the half measured availed us nothing. And we've got to, we asked his protection and care with, again, complete abandon. So I just found it interesting for my program to where, like I said, as many times as I've heard how it works, been read aloud, and that I've read it many, many times in different meetings, and even, I like going to it in my big book to reread how it works and going through it. But the simple fact was just a fact that I'd never picked up on that before, that there's so many times just in that short 5 paragraphs that are telling us right off the bat, if you want to get this program and you want it to work for you, you got to be all in. And that was, it was a revelation to me when it kind of hit me. I'm not sure that everybody would necessarily agree with that take on it, but that's how I saw it. And that's been something that I've shared with others just because, again, one, I was amazed that it came out at me after so many times of reading or having been read to, and just the sheer powerfulness of what it's saying and getting into the suggested steps. So that was my thought.
Yeah.
To you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Brett. So Brett's referring to the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So a couple things there. One, great insight on a couple areas. So it doesn't matter what, and I think we all concur, it doesn't apply just to alcohol and drugs. It's like anything you're dealing with, those points that you just made from that reading apply to everything. And the umbrella idea of immersing ourselves into recovery. And so I like how you pointed out, because I obviously have read that many, many times too. And the way you just pointed out, I don't think I ever broke it down that way before. So that was good insight. And maybe we could, we don't have to take it by the numbers, but I would ask you, if you wouldn't mind, the first insight that you had was thoroughly followed our path. What was the second one again?
And then the next sentence talks about how those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not, again, completely give themselves to this simple program.
Okay, completely give ourselves to this simple program. And then the next point you made was at any length.
Yep, willing to go to any length to get it.
And then fearless and thorough.
From the very start, that's right.
And what was the next one?
Right after that. Some of us had tried to hold on to our old ideas and the result was nil until we
let go. Absolutely. That's awesome. Okay, so, and then we have half measures availed us nothing. Yep. And then the final one was to follow our higher power, so to speak, with complete abandonment. Okay, great. All right, guys, I'm gonna throw it out to you. You know, you've got 7 points there. If one of them sticks out to you, you can chime in. Give us maybe a little experience on it. Give us some thoughts on it. You know, we know what it says. What does it mean to you? How can we apply it to our lives? And hopefully some folks out there listening to this will maybe grab a nugget or two that they can apply to their own recovery program.
Hey guys, my name's Tony. I'm an alcoholic. So
Tony,
I really, I could really feel what Brett was saying, and especially when it comes to immersion in the program. So, you know, I've been in the program now for about 5 years with multiple relapses or slips, which are, you know, sobriety losing its priority. And, you know, my sponsor always talks about immersion into the program. But, you know, for me, I thought that I was immersed into the program. I was doing, you know, going to conventions, going to meetings, doing different types of service work outside, going to treatment centers, going to jails, things like that. But in my heart, I was doing everything on the outside, but on the inside, I was not immersed in the program. And I think that's where, for me, that was one of my biggest downfalls, because I always thought that, well, maybe I can drink like a normal person. And I think it's that way with any type of addiction. Well, maybe I can look at just a little bit of pornography. Maybe I can just do a little bit of dope. But that's not the thing, because we know it. Once we do a little bit, we've got to do it again and again and again. So this immersion has to not only be what you're doing outwardly, but it has to be what you're doing inwardly with your heart. So that's my little piece of it.
Yeah, good insight. You had said recently about having, and I'm going to use the word epiphany. What was that, or if you could share how the best you can, what happened that made you think whatever, you know, need to get on the narrow?
Oh, it's a very interesting discussion. So, yeah, you know, I've disappointed my family quite many times. You know, when you go on vacation, you think you're planning on it. It's going to be this great thing. You know, you're weeks and weeks, everybody's talking about it, and then you go on vacation and something happens and, you know, you drink. And then the vacation is not what you wanted it to be. I don't know if it's an epiphany, but, and this may, you know, sound strange to some of the listeners here, but for me, I think that I had a God experience. And my God experience was, something. I don't know if it was a dream or I don't know if it was an actual thing that happened when I was awake, but I feel that God talked to me. And this was a few weeks ago after my last relapse, and I haven't felt the same ever since. For people in addiction, most of us are reaching out for a helping hand, whether it's another human being or whether it's something that's more spiritual. I've got many, many people around me, human beings, brothers, sisters, that can help me. But I never felt like I had something spiritual. And now I feel like I have a spiritual helping hand because of the experience. I'm not going to get into what it was right now, maybe in another podcast. So, but wait, there's more. So we will see. But I really feel that there's a balance there. You've got to have people around you that are helping you with, your addiction and getting through that. But you also have to have that spiritual awakening or that spiritual experience that helps you, feel the way that you want to feel.
Yeah, I appreciate you. And the reason I wanted you to bring that up was, we've talked about visions, dreams, spiritual awakening, experiences. They can come in many different forms. But I know we took a little rabbit trail from the whole immersion thing, umbrella. But I listening to you talk, Tony, made me think of that because it's been a topic lately in our, off podcast anyway. Maybe we should do a whole show on that sometime with some folks that share their experiences, their spiritual experiences. The reason I even brought that up is because a lot of us go a long time in recovery without ever having one. I've met people that have them at the beginning of their recovery, and they share them. And I didn't have that myself. And, back in the 80s when I first was introduced to the program, I'd hear people talking about it. It was just absolutely foreign to me. And I really didn't have a God. Again, I wasn't an atheist. I was more of an agnostic, come or go, whatever. I didn't have my experience until, it was over a year. And that was an epiphany for me that, I really, and it wasn't just alcohol and drugs. A lot of folks think recovery is just not doing something, but it's more than not doing something. It's actually becoming something. And that was really a monumental awakening to me of some sort, because it was like, you know what? I can be more than just a tax-paying, law-abiding citizen. I can do something for humanity. And I had this feeling that I was worth something. Whereas before, I didn't think I was worth anything. I just thought, I need to quit doing this because, Brett, you actually said it some time ago that you'd come into the program because of back problems. You wanted to get everybody off your back, and that was kind of where I was too. And so really for the most part, then I was just marking time, eating cookies, drinking coffee, and staying sober. Really wasn't ever thinking that I could be something more. And so maybe that's a topic we need to have another time. But, with these table jams and just us, getting together as a tribe all the time, we never know where these conversations are going to go. Again, we're raw and uncensored. So to a point, if we get really crazy, then I might have to take some of that out. I don't want to scare our audience off with some of the stuff that we could, this group of fellows comes up with. All right. So again, we had some points there. Thoroughly followed our path, completely give in, willing to go at any length, fearless and thorough, let go absolutely, half measures just availed us nothing, and to our higher powers, complete abandonment. So abandon. So, guys, what are your thoughts?
Well, hey, everybody, I'm Josh.
Shout out, Josh.
Reflecting on my own life, I think about, let me put it this way. We've most of us can relate to we talk about spiritual maladies and all of that, and the disease of the spirit. And I think if anybody has ever heard that expression, I think a lot of it has to do with it's just being of self. We're by nature we're just selfish creatures, we tend to go against the grain of everything. Everyone else says go this way, we want to go that way, and I think with addicts and alcoholics and a lot of people who share a similar malady, that's I don't know, it's in our nature, and call it pride, call it ego, whatever you want to call it. We tend to do that a lot. And so my point being is, and I know I did since I was a kid, always going against the grain of whatever I was being told to do. I wouldn't do it. And if I was told not to do it, you best believe I was going to do it, just to show everybody. And I carried that for a long time. I mean, really it wasn't until I came into, the program to where my thinking changed. But, definitely those steps were some of the first things I said, or I heard. And it was like, I heard it in the beginning, but it was hard to really hear it when you think you're different than everybody else. And that's what I thought I was all, like a lot of people that come in the program, it's like, oh, well, maybe I can figure out a way to manipulate this. Maybe I can figure out a way to do it different. And, cause I'm special, right? I mean, that's what we think, we're special. And, but I soon realized after some time had passed, I was doing the whole going to meetings, and I even had some worksheet talks with people, one-on-one work talks with people. And, but I wasn't getting it. I just wasn't getting it, and that was the reason. But I heard that night after night after night, half measures availed us nothing. And I don't know where, I just know that somewhere along the line, I very, against the grain I knew that I was going to have to do this thing. I was going to have to do it thoroughly. Here is this thing, this gift that's being offered to me, and I'm being told, hey, this is a way of living. And it's a way of living where you don't have to take a drink, and you don't have to do drugs, and you don't have to do all of these other things. You can be happy, and this will show you how to do it. And so somewhere along the line, I finally, decided. I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this thing, and it took a while, but I don't know. Somewhere along the line, I realized that I guess I just felt like somewhere along the line there was nothing left for me. Like I just it's that I surrender. Like I just can't do it anymore. And I can't remember the day or the time or any of that stuff. And I want to say it was a burning bush moment. I just realized that I needed to stop fighting it. I needed to stop going against the grain. And for once in my life, I needed to finally say, I got to stop doing it my way. I've got to do it another way. And because my way wasn't working. And I'm not talking about just drinking. I mean, drinking was obviously the key. That was the symptom, but it was everything from the way I'd been living to the way I'd been thinking to all of that. So none of it was working. And so I needed a different way. And, when I came to the program, I was told, you can do it, but you're going to have to give up everything that you think you thought about life, and you're going to have to give up your old way of thinking, and you're going to have to give up just your old ways in general. You're going to have to give yourself up to this program. You're going to have to give yourself up to something bigger than you. And so somewhere along the line, I finally did it. And I can't say that I gave myself 100%, but not like immediately, but it just seemed like the more and more I gave of myself and the less I held on to, I started to feel those changes, in my life and in my thinking and everything. And things started kind of turning around for me, and I started building a faith in the program, and I was like, this really does work. And, I started to come to the realization that the more I try to control my life and live life according to my will, it doesn't go off very well. So I had to do something different. And, I guess that's what I try to day to day is to live in the program, be immersed in it, and do what I can, because I know that's what's going to keep me going, from day to day. So.
Okay, so I think you bring up a good point. Maybe we could tackle this for a minute. All of us have been around this program for a while. We see people come in that are radically changed. Now, when I say radically changed, they obviously don't have the wisdom and the longevity experience from, living the big book, but they get this radical change and they dive in. I'm always impressed with people like that. I wasn't one of them, but I am impressed with people that do that. And then there's folks that, I'm not looking for time hacks, but, along the journey, they get these growth spurts and they start to see stuff and they feel stuff. And I'm thinking, you remember that fellow Stan that we did part of the Watchtower Trail with? Yes. And so shout out Stan, if you ever listen to this show. Stan is, I don't know if he's in his late 70s or early 80s. He's a retired emergency room doctor in California. He's not by any stretch of the imagination one of us, but he's got a lot of insight that he gives in the medical world, but actually applies in a lot of things we do. Like, for instance, I was on the Baton Death March with him, and he had to have been one of the absolute oldest guys out there. It's 26 miles in the desert, but this guy, he rucks all over the world. Great shape, great attitude, very soft delivery, very methodical. And when the Baton March started, I was with him for about a mile or so, and I was kind of eager to move on because of my own pace. And he actually said, you need to move out. I'm obviously a little bit older than you, so, but he made a point that the body, and I think about this, what I'm about to say, and apply it to recovery. He said the body releases certain chemicals at certain times, and if you jump in too fast into a physical exertion, you experience what's called burnout. But your body is designed to pick up the pace, and it'll release certain chemicals at certain times. And, I couldn't name all those things. I'd love to have him on the show just to talk about some of that type of stuff. And so I've witnessed that in the program where guys come in and they jump in and they're immersed. Bam. And I don't know if they expect something, but they're not getting something, and they experience like a burnout. They start going 7 days a week, and then they back off to a couple days a week, and then they're gone. And then there's others that listen to those wisdomful words, don't quit before the miracle, keep coming back. And like old Jerry used to say, right? And that guy had a lot of years and a lot of wisdom, but the one thing I always hung on to, he would always say, don't drink, go to meetings. And it's like, that's your, of course, that's your infinite wisdom. And years later, I'm like, that is some serious infinite wisdom, So if you guys want to hit on that a little bit, or what I'd like to hear is what, for our audience, I don't know if folks out there think, we've got to stay in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous all the time, or, we're going to step out and disappear, zap. That's not true. We can have a life today. Like Josh, you and I have gone on plenty of trips. Tony, we've been on road trips together. Brett, road trips. We've done stuff together that's not. It's not affiliated, so to speak, with a recovery institution. It's just a bunch of guys that are out experiencing stuff, having a life. So when I say immersion, I mean I'm looking at some of the things, Brett, you brought up early in the beginning of the show. What would what's your recovery program look like that's just not alcohol related? What does now look like compared to then, before you got into recovery?
Well, I can tell you that I'm actually getting ready to head out of state next week. And I know you've all heard me talk about this younger brother of my best friend from high school who was in a diving accident and is now a quadriplegic. And he has outlived the average for he's doubled it. Actually, I believe this year is the 19th year of us all getting together for one of his major fundraisers, which is a golf tournament. So I'll be hooking up with my best buddy from high school and two of our other buddies from high school that I always used to run around with. And when this golf tournament first started, I was still drinking. And quite frankly, when the four of us all got together, it was basically a drinking event where a golf game broke out, type deal. By the time we usually made it to the 10th or 11th hole, or 10 or 11 holes down the, wherever we would have started from. But the point being that none of us could hardly swing a club, let alone, actually do anything worth trying to get a good score.
That's how I play sober.
That's why I keep playing, is because it didn't really make any difference whether I was drinking or not. So, yeah, I get that. Me saying I play golf is really stretching the definition of the term play. But I'm going to do that again. Now, after I got sober, that was not an event that I was in a position to be able to go do, because those guys aren't like us. Yeah, we had a tendency to overdo it. That was also, pushing 20 years ago, a lot younger kind of type deal. But the simple fact is that, they look forward to being able to all get together and doing what a lot of us all did, back when we were drinking, which was doing it up and generally overdoing it. And we've all gotten older now. I don't know that it's going to be that crazy when I go there next week, but they'll still be drinking. And probably be some other recreational activities going on along with the alcohol. But I'm in a position now, because of my program, to where I'm okay with that. And I can do that. And I've done it now for several years, getting together with these guys and going out. They have their fun. I have my fun just being with them and telling lies about the old days and playing a little golf and being outside, and knowing too that, it's one of the few times throughout the years that we all get a chance to get together. The other thing too is obviously it's for a great cause. I absolutely, love my best friend and his younger brother. I say younger brother, he's like 4 years younger than me. Back when we were in high school, that was an issue. Today, we're all, just all very, very close-knit, and he's an amazing guy. He's actually somebody else that we could, you might consider having join in on this podcast, because he and I spent a lot of time staying up late at night. When I was part of the quad squad. So he has volunteers come over and feed him at night and put him to bed. And back when I was living up there, I'd get him into bed. We'd watch some TV or something. Or sometimes we wouldn't watch TV, and we'd just sit there and shoot the breeze for, 2.5, 3, 4 hours. It might be 2 o'clock in the morning. And finally we're like, okay, Mark, you don't have anything to do tomorrow, but I do. So I got to go to bed, type deal. But we would kind of compare and contrast our situations. None of us sitting down here, to the best of my knowledge, ever woke up one day and said, man, I would just love to be able to have my life completely controlled by, drugs or alcohol or some other element that's all if I'm not participating in it, I'm thinking about when I'm going to. Well, he was avid skier. He loved the mountains. He loved going out and hiking. And he and his, my best buddy, his older brother, lives in Colorado. He lived out there with them for a while just so that they could go do all that kind of stuff. And then, just made a poor decision. And instantly, that was that. But, he went through, some of the same type of thinking too. He struggled with higher power thinking on, kind of the why did this have to happen to me? I'm a young guy. I was physically fit. I could do all this, kind of fun stuff out in the outdoors and Doug doing it. And now all of a sudden I'm stuck in a wheelchair. But he just has a personality that persevered. And, it's just amazing. So I kind of got off topic and squirreled away on that, but I love that guy, and he's helped me out with my program. Every time I start to get into like a little pity party on, some kind of raver that things aren't going the way Brett thinks they ought to go, all I got to do is think of my buddy. And like, you know, I don't have to have somebody come over here and feed me and put me to bed and that kind of stuff. And it helps that I know him, you know. But yeah, that'll pull me out of that pity party usually pretty darn quick. So I got that going, and there's been other things like that as well. I'm also at an age right now where, you know, my oldest is having kids, so that's part of the agenda while I'm, you know, going to be gone, is see my brand newly arrived second grandson. And I mean, these are family things that maybe everybody kind of takes for granted. You know, I think you brought that, or that got brought up earlier. But if I was still, if I hadn't got sober, number one, I probably wouldn't be alive. So I never would have seen either one of the grandkids. But if for some reason I was still trudging along but still drinking and still alive, there's no way that my kids would let me anywhere near their kids, and they wouldn't want to have anything to do with me. It was kind of part of the issues that I had to wrestle with once I did get sober, was, you know, rebuilding those bridges. But they've been rebuilt, and I'm absolutely happy for that. And it can happen. And, you know, anyway, I'd squirrel off on another deal. One thing, and I know you asked specifically about things that could be done outside of the arena of just trying to work a program. That was one of them. There's certainly been other things. Concerts, you know, rock concerts. I've gone to sometimes by myself, sometimes with, you know, somebody else from the tribe, you know, something along those lines. For any of us that may be listening out there that may have a problem with gambling, we don't per se, probably because I'm not rich, but, you know, we've done the casinos and the horse races and that kind of stuff, and it was an absolute blast. You know, I absolutely had a fantastic time. So, yeah, life will keep on going, and you can do what you want to do. You just need to make sure that if you're fully immersed and, you know, you're got a program that's very, very solid, and you know what your limitations are, and you have outs, you know. Was talking to somebody actually at a meeting not too long ago that was getting ready to go to some kind of an event, like a wedding or an anniversary party or something like that, and hadn't been sober very long, and was really starting to kind of get, you know, anxious and worked up over that, and didn't really know what to do because it was family oriented. And my suggestion was take somebody with you, take somebody from the program with you. Make sure you have an out. You know, drive yourself, take somebody with you, and if things start getting a little wacky, get out. You know, because you got to do, again, that's one of them. If you're willing to go to any length. So even though it's family, you may not be ready for that just yet, and the family's going to have to wait. But the family will continue to be there, and if you're doing the things that you need to do to keep yourself clean and sober, those things will be available. It just may take a while, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And I don't want to sidetrack it all that much more, but I do want to focus one thing on what Josh said, kind of back to the list. It does tie back together. And that's, he mentioned the word surrender.
You can adjust that up, Brett, so you're not breaking your neck. There you go. That yeah. If when you pull away in here, it's you sound far off.
Oh, okay. But that was what Josh talking about, surrendering. And I look at that list as, and this is just reiterating what Josh said, but it's around the word surrender. Not only are we surrendering to our disease, whether it's alcoholism, whether it's drug addiction, whether it's pornography or gambling or something else, eating disorders, whatever. We have to surrender before we can start getting to the point where we can start working on it. But that list is surrendering, to your point, Josh, the things you were doing, your past behaviors, your past lives, the people, places, things that you were doing. You're gonna have to probably surrender those, at least in the interim, or in the, you know, at the beginning part of a recovery program, so that you can focus on what needs to be focused on, which is really us. We got to focus on us. The whole point should be At least it's the way it's always been told to me. The point of getting sober is for us. Just like you were mentioning earlier, Bob, on getting people off our back. For those of us, that went into a program where we were just trying to satisfy what other people were telling us we needed to do, but we weren't really trying to do it for ourselves. We were doing it for other people. We have a tendency to fail when that happens, unfortunately. And it's not until, again, we recognize that we look around at the people that are sober and say, I want what they have, and I'm willing to go to any length to go get it. Yep. So I just wanted to touch on that again, because the surrender part is absolutely the way I look at that. Surrendering not only to my disease, but surrendering to the things that got me there and what I need to change, which again is going back to what Josh said, to start working on myself to get better.
Yeah. Good word. Good word. I got to get close to the mic when I talk too. So we're talking about these 7 points, and like we never know where we're going to go with this topic. Dwight, I met you very, very soon after coming into this area, moving here, getting engaged with the program and meeting new people. And you were one of the first persons that I met. This is going back almost 8 years ago, I think. And I was impressed because a lot of folks hit a point in their life where I guess they think that they've got all they're going to get or give out of the program, and I don't know where they go or what they do, but you continue to come around, and I think you might be the oldest one in our group here. I'm looking around here. You might be the older one.
I don't know. I am.
Yeah. Okay. And so when you hear these topics, I mean, you've been around a while. When you hear any of these points, I was attracted to you platonically, of course, because of your insight, and you're one of the guys that, frankly, you're to the point. Sugarcoat doesn't exist in your vocabulary. You remind me of another guy that I witnessed somebody ask him, would you help me with my recovery? And the first thing that this fellow said was, are you willing to go to any lengths, or what lengths are you willing to go to? You're kind of one of those guys. So I'm turning the mic over to you for a couple things. One is, what does immersion look like to you? And when you're talking to a new fella, from your experience, what kind of insight do you provide?
Thank you, Bob. I am the oldest guy in this group. In fact, I'm 80 years old, and so I am definitely the oldest guy. I didn't start drinking until I was 56 years old. That's when I became an alcoholic. I drank for 10 years. I was floundering. Fortunately, I was singularly addicted. I never messed with drugs or anything else. Alcohol was more than a big plenty for me, so I didn't need any other chemicals. But anyway, I didn't really have anybody on my back. I hadn't been married. I've been divorced for 42 years. I mean, I've had people in my life, ladies in my lives, and all that, and got 2 grandchildren, and they're young adults, and so But to answer your question about the immersion, I go to lots and lots and lots of meetings. I mean, basically in the beginning, I kind of swapped my alcoholism for AA, if I look back on it, because I go to 7 days a week, sometimes 2 meetings a day, because I'm retired. I got the time, I can go all I want to, and so I do want to go, and I do go. And but unlike most of you tribe guys, I'm actually a lot more private than you guys might know. I've been a lone wolf my whole life, and I paid a price for that. I mean, you guys have been in the military and other organizations and the police department and everything else. You're used to being around a bunch of guys and all that camaraderie, and quite frankly, that's a little bit foreign to me. And that's why I one of the reasons that the tribe and all you guys are so beneficial to me is I was a little bit out of balance, really. I mean, I was a whole lot out of balance because I, like I said, was kind of a lone wolf. And no man, like the saying, no man is an island. Well, I was sort of an island, but I can tell you that that is not ultimately very satisfying. I mean, I had a great career. I've got a lot of stuff. I had all the toys anybody could want. But come to find out, after I went through my drinking years in alcoholism, the light bulb came on for me. All that stuff, all the possessions, all that stuff really doesn't mean shit when you get right down to it. The only thing that really matters to me anymore is my relationship with God, and then my family, and then it's AA, and that's what really matters. And so that's where I exert most of my effort, is in those areas. So I didn't know what to expect. I've never participated in one of you guys' podcasts. Typically, I'm a man of few words. I'm not ultra crepidarian like some people.
Spell that.
I know the meaning of it, Brett.
That's a big word.
I'm looking it up right now.
Ultra crepidarian.
Sure,
So I call people out on that who think they are one. They think they know everything when in fact they're full of crap. But so Bob and I get a kick out of that. Bob's the one that turned me on to that word. But I mess with people, and I will say straight things to them. Most of the time I'm really kidding. I'm kidding. I'm not trying to wound them, but sometimes I'm willing for it to kind of crash into them. But I think it'll help them a little bit. But what do I know? I mean, that's just my humble opinion, which sometimes isn't all that humble, but I do know that when I came to AA, I was looking for something in my life, and I definitely wanted to leave my alcoholism. And so when I came to AA, I found exactly what I was looking for in there. The big book says that. I mean, there is a solution to our alcoholism, and it is AA. It is a relationship with a higher power. I consider myself to be fairly religious and fairly spiritual guy. I go to church frequently because I choose to. I want to. It's good for me. I like it. And so I do know that I would not be in recovery for several years now if it were not for the help of my higher power, and certainly the program. And the biggest plus I've gotten lately is God, if we'll pay attention, God puts certain people in our lives as we roll along. And you tribe guys are one of the latest additions to my life that's provided some real meaning for me. So I can't tell you guys how much I appreciate all you guys. And I know sometimes some of you guys don't exactly understand my sense of humor or my
no, we understand.
What I say. I know Brett and I in the beginning, we sat across the room and kind of looked at each other like, who the Sam Hill are you, and why are you here? But we have since realized that we're kindred spirits, and we have an admiration for one another, or I have one for him. Let's put it that way. He can speak for himself, but I'm just a grateful recovering alcoholic, and like I said, I've lived a lot of years, and before I became an alcoholic, I was a racer. I was a drag racer, had race cars, and as we say, and that's the most fun you can have with your clothes on. is going fast in a car in a short distance. I mean, so I did all that for years and liked it, and it finally became kind of cost prohibitive, and cost big bucks to go fast, and I didn't want to spend that money on that. And like a lot of guys, I had the toys, I had the motorcycles and all that stuff, and fast cars and pretty women, and I was searching for something that would add meaning to my life. And at that point, I really wasn't drinking. I didn't really drink. You guys know this. I didn't really drink until I got retired from my corporation. I retired when I was 57 years old, and I didn't have any serious hobbies. That's a no-no. That's not any. Don't do it that way. If you're about to retire, develop some hobbies or something meaningful for you to do. And so I turned to drinking a little bit. Well, unfortunately, I had alcoholism in my genes, and I didn't drink long until I crossed over. And when I crossed over into alcoholism, then I was there, and I was drinking against my own will, and man, I did some stupid stuff, with people and with my money. I mean, I spent money like a drunken sailor, and so when you think you got a little money, then you spend it. So fortunately, I still had enough brain cells touching that I stopped in time before I, run myself into the real ditch. So anyway, by the grace of God, I came into AA. But I will say this: I had one child. I had a daughter, and she died when she's 54 years old. And she was one of us. She died of a heart attack when she was 54. And I didn't come to AA. I didn't come to the meeting. I didn't say anything to anybody. Now, why I didn't tell everybody, I don't know. Maybe I didn't want to. I just didn't. But anyway, I ran into Bob at F Street, and I said, "Hey, Bob, my daughter died." And he threw his arms around me and gave me a man hug, and that meant so much to me. And that was, my daughter's been gone 5 years. That is the toughest thing that I have ever tried to deal with in my entire life. But I can tell you this, I did not drink over it. I never one time thought about drinking. I thought, I don't need alcohol to go with this. This is enough. But my relationship with God and this program has enabled me to move past most of the severe pain. As time goes on, the loss of a loved one, it does get better. So thank God I did not have to turn to alcohol. I don't know exactly what all you was looking for me. You guys wanted me to talk about, but I ran a pretty large gamut here. But I came in and got sober in 2013, so I got 11 years in, and thus far, by the grace of God, I have not found it necessary to try to do any more research. I got all the alcohol kicked my butt. All I owned it kicked when I did it I drank for less than 10 years, but when you drink when you're in your 50s and 60s, it is really hard on your body, and it will beat you to death if you stay with it. So anyway, I hope that this information, if anybody out there hears it and it helps them, then I'm glad to share it. So just glad to be here with all the guys tonight, and with that, I'll sign off.
Thanks, Dwight.
Thanks, Dwight. I have memories of, if a picture could tell 1,000 words, ultra-crepidarian is, in my silent vocabulary. But I watch people, talk, and I don't know what to think of what they're saying. And I'm thinking about it, and I'll look around, and I'll see Dwight's face, and it's got written all over it, "You are so full of," and
that is true. That's true. I've seen that look.
And we all know Dwight really well. You are a man of few words. You speak more when you're with the tribe than you ever do in the rooms. But if somebody would stop and just say, Dwight, would you lend me some words to help me with my journey? I don't know what would come out of your heart, but I know where your heart is, because what a lot of folks don't know, and I'm not trying to dime you out, but a lot of folks, they'll place a label on an individual based on their mannerisms, their facial expressions, whatever. And yours might be, I don't know, curmudgeon. Sure. But what a lot of people don't know, and we know what you do behind the scenes for people that have got nothing. And, it's consistent with, I'm going to tell you the truth and you may not like it, but if you need help, I'm going to be there for you. And that, to me, you're a very, very good example of what tough love looks like. Where a lot of people are sensitive in this day and age, don't hurt my feelings. I need a safe place. You don't identify with that. It's like, hey, you're coming into this room of recovery because of a reason. We're not going to sugarcoat this. If you want to get right, get right. If you're not done experiencing, then we'll see you when you come back, and I love you for that. I've always had an affinity for you. And I think we have a lot in common. It's just that we all know you reach a certain age bracket and you can get away with saying whatever the hell you want. And you're certainly that guy. So if we need somebody to hear the hardcore facts, We need to introduce him to Dwight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I can tell you right now, I had the tribe over to my house probably about a month or so ago, and my 15-year-old daughter was in the kitchen. She's making her little meal, and Dwight was in there and talking to her, and then he left. And I'm like, yeah, that's Dwight. He's 80. She goes, no, he's not 80 years old. And I'm like, yeah, Dwight's 80. She goes, he's too sharp to be 80 years old. So now every time I mention Dwight at the house, she's like, he's not 80 years old. So it's really funny.
That is funny. Thank you. Yeah, I had one of my first. I don't know if it's the first time I met Dwight. I just remember, however long I'd been coming to the room, I had started taking a notice of Dwight across the room up at the F Street, and he. I don't remember what the topic was that night, but we were talking about. I think it was spiritual experiences, and we were talking earlier about that, where a lot of people go for a long, long time without a spiritual experience, and as I listened to people sharing, a lot of them were like, "Oh, I've never had these burning bush moments and all that," and I had this one incident where there was a dream and it involved my grandfather, and I won't go into details over it. Just it was what I needed at the time as a form of reassurance that I was doing the right thing, that I was exactly where I needed to be. And the long story short is I saw him as a young man, and I hadn't seen my grandfather since 2001 when he passed. And I had a lot of regret about that because I didn't go and see him when he was dying. But in that moment, he was a young man, and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and I recognized him, and he recognized me, and then he just started crying, and he grabs me and he hugs me, and he says, "I'm so proud of you." And I shared that story because it meant a lot. I mean, it resonated with me so much. I mean, it was in here. It was up in my head and in my heart. And so I just felt compelled that night to share that experience, because everybody else was, or almost everybody else was like, "Wow, we've never had a spiritual experience." And I thought, I really think this was a spiritual experience. I mean, I couldn't with absolute certainty, but I was like, I think this was a spiritual experience, and I shared it. And then later after the meeting, Dwight, I think it was one of the first times he came up and spoke to me, but, and I don't remember his exact words, but he goes, "No, what you had was a spiritual experience." And I don't remember his exact words, but basically it was, hold on to it. I don't know if you remember that, Dwight, but basically his words were, hold on to it, keep it. And that meant a lot for him to kind of say, "Hey, that was exactly what you thought it was. And you need to remember that, hold on to it," all of that stuff. And, so that was a big deal to me. And that was one of my first times to ever speak to Dwight. So,
well, I'd say, Dwight, you're a silent big deal.
BB Dwight.
Hey, before we go on break here, just a couple things. Brett, I do want to do a show with your friend. If you could reach out to him, I think that would be a good show, because we do have a lot of physically challenged people out there that have great insight on, I think of Nick Vujicic. I don't know if you've heard of him, an amazing survivor. I don't want to get into that right now, but that's an opportunity for the future. But before we go on,
they were on a Jamaica trip. And, man, this kid had it. I mean, it was just one of those, college kid. He had everything. He was engaged to be married. And then, next thing you know, these guys were the typical, adventurous kind of lads. Anyway, they climbed a waterfall. They were climbing a waterfall, and they were jumping off of it. And, he slipped. And so he went down off the cliff and landed on a rock, and he was quadriplegic at that point. So when you were sharing that story, I was like, surely it can't be the same guy. Surely not. But that'd be a small world. But I mean, they went to school here in Arkansas, so that's why I was like,
Yeah, that's rough. Okay. Gonna have to do a 10-second quiet just so I can do the thing for Redbeard. All right, folks, welcome back to Shout Out from the Pit. We started talking today about immersion, and we've got a lot of rabbit trails here, but that's how table jams go. And so we're back. I've got my friends Tony, Dwight, Brett, and Josh with us, and we're continuing our chat on immersion and see where this thing goes. So I'd like to kick off, with the higher power. That we allude to that a lot, and I think, Dwight, you hit it on the head. How in the world can anybody get sober without a higher power? So let's tap into that, guys. I don't know where that's going to take us, but let me hear it.
All right. Well, everybody's looking at me, so I was a higher power.
The Lamb of God shirt you have on.
Yeah, I've got a Lamb of God shirt on. So. Most people that see that shirt, they're like, "Oh, I love your shirt." And I'm just like, "Well, okay." You knew what kind of music they played, but higher power. That's just it's a great topic, but sometimes it's hard to talk about because you don't know, your audience and what they've experienced or not experienced. When it comes to a higher power, and that's especially with alcoholics and addicts and people, that's always a touchy subject. I mean, it's sometimes it hits a nerve, and other people, it's like, that are, we're talking about immersed in the program. I mean, once you finally do we talked about that surrender. Once you finally do kind of surrender to that whole idea of willpower and just giving it up to something bigger than you, and you see the changes in your life, I think that's where you start building the faith in that spiritual connection, that there's something bigger than just us out there. And whatever it is, whether you accept it as a traditional God, religious God, or whatever you accept it as, I think that, I think the spirituality and the faith come from seeing the changes in your life and seeing that there's a better way to live. And I don't know, there's just kind of something about it when nothing ever good in my life came from me not believing in a higher power. And I say that it was just like nothing but pain and just misery. That is the worst and most lonely feeling in the world sometimes. And anybody who's listening that might have feel that way, you understand, you get it. And there were times that I didn't want to believe because, I was, things aren't going my way. And I never could really look in the mirror and point at the guy in the mirror and say, well, the reason things aren't going your way and that the reason your life isn't going well is because of you. Has nothing to do with God or the wind's blowing or anything like that. It just has to do with you not knowing how to live life. And so all I know is, and I know very little, I can admit that today. That's the thing about this program is it teaches you just how little you know about God. But I can say for me personally, it is in this program of recovery that I did find my higher power, and for the first time in my life. And it didn't just happen instantly. It took work. It took me coming back. It took me listening to other people and their story of that spiritual journey of coming in and not believing, and then doing what was asked of them, doing what was suggested, not asked, but suggested of them, and little by little, that spirituality started to build, and they started to believe in the program, and then eventually they started to believe in something, that there was something bigger out there that was at work. And once they were able to do that and finally kind of give themselves over completely, just like, in the steps where it talks about that, no half measures, got to do it all the way. Once they're able to do that, then I think the light bulb really goes off eventually, and you start seeing that it's like, oh my gosh, this thing really does work, and that's the great thing about like a program, getting a program of recovery, and whether it's an AA, addicts, NA or whatever it is, just having a program for living. It's very, very important that you have that, but it has to be grounded in spirituality. It has to be grounded in something that is bigger than us. And I guess for me, the freeing thing was I was able to kind of come up with a concept of God, my God, not everybody else's God, and not everybody's going to sign off on that. And I'm not asking you to, but for me, that was the freeing moment to be able to say, I don't have to believe everything that you believe or he believes or she believes. I actually can believe in a higher power that I believe in. And if that's what gets me sober, if that's what helps me along the way in my life, then great, excellent. And that's worked for me for the first time in my life over the last, 6+ years. That's worked for me, and it continues to work for me. And so I guess I'm just going to close it with that and say, that's why I keep coming back. That's why I keep doing it. Because today I'm a heck of a lot happier than I was 6 years ago, and I'm doing a heck of a lot better. And I haven't had to drink over any of it. I just keep in mind that I'm not in charge. In the grand scheme of the universe, I'm pretty small. I'm pretty tiny. I'm a small speck of sand, and that's okay today. I'm okay with that. But knowing that, being that small, I need to know that I'm not in charge of things. So, and as long as I can keep that in mind, then I think I'm going to do all right. Just because then I can give it over to something bigger than myself. As far as willpower and all that other stuff, control, all of that, I can give it over to that higher power. So. Anyway, I'm just rambling on, so I'm going to give the mic up to somebody else.
Yeah, good word, Josh. Thank you.
In regard to spirituality, we got a big book for AA. It's got 12 steps in it. And so as long as I read that big book and follow those 12 steps, then I can achieve recovery. I'll say it in a second. I also read another book, and it's got 10 steps in it. Well, actually 10 commandments. But anyway, I know who God is. I believe in God. You don't have to believe the same way I do. But the big AA's big book says that down deep inside of all of us, everybody believes in something. And so, in my case, I grew up in organized religion, and so I know who God is. Excuse me. Bless you. I know I would not be living in recovery today if it were not for the help of my higher power, which is God. So I'm not trying to be a Bible thumper. This is what I believe, and anyone listening out there, I encourage you. You got to have something bigger than whatever your disease is. You got to have something bigger and more meaningful if you want to turn away from your disease. In my case, I turn to my higher power, which is God. So thank you guys, and God bless.
Thanks, Dwight.
Thank you, sir. I was lucky in the fact that I felt like I was always kind of spiritual in terms of, if for no other reason, just looking at how many questions that I had, as a kid growing up, and that I still have. I've never stopped questioning a lot of different things. And the fact that, I can see everything from such beauty in the world to just really cool stuff that happens that nobody can seem to explain, and this, that, and the other. I mean, from my standpoint, that I looked at that as, well, there's got to be a, some sort of power in the universe that's kind of in charge of doing all this stuff that we'll just, never understand. It's kind of funny. One of my, hopes, if I have that, is that, when I die, all the questions that I've ever had that went unanswered get answered. Who knows what'll happen at that point in time, but that to me would be heaven, is all these questions that I've had over, my lifetime. All of a sudden I get the answers to it. So that would be pretty cool. The problem that I had in terms of my alcoholism, though, is that I could see that, that higher power on a macro level, but I didn't understand, and I didn't make a connection to where on a micro level, why that power would give two poops about little old Brett, and not being able to have something, like that as an actual element within my life. And, even as we were kind of talking in the break, and I'll save these for, another podcast, but I've had some spiritual experiences that absolutely solidified, my belief that there is a power greater than myself. But it took this program of getting into it to start learning and still learning how I can, kind of bring that power into my life on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour, even minute-to-minute basis. And that is something that I still, it's not so much that I struggle, well, maybe struggle is the right word, but it's something that I have yet to even come close to getting good at, let alone master. And I still have to go through with that. So as somebody that can sometimes way overthink a lot of different things, one of the things that at least the AA program has helped me out with that is just the history and keeping it simple. The whole history of AA is two guys sitting at a small table talking about their experiences with alcohol. By definition, two people greater than a single person. And I've used that in my past to say, look, if I'm getting tweaked up or, I'm getting some stinking thinking and funky little thoughts bouncing back and forth between my ears, I get with another alcoholic. I have right then and there created an environment where there's a power greater than myself at work, at play. Now, I still believe that, for lack of for the best definition to say a God element that I do believe in. But again, getting that God into my life on a day-to-day basis is something that, that I still I got to work at. I got to work at day in and day out. And I got a long way to go to get on there. And I find it, just doing some self-reflection. Yes, I've had some experiences that absolutely, unquestionably, made up my mind that there's got to be something that, we don't understand, but is at work and at play in our daily lives. But even having had those, just to be, complete blind faith in absolutely every single thing that I do every minute of every day, I don't have that yet. And that's the part that I'm, still trying to work into. But yeah, I do, and I echo what Dwight said. Whether your higher power is just another alcoholic addict or somebody else that's in the same recovery program as you are, that you can confide in and that you can talk with and that you can share, your experiences with, that's better than nothing at all. And I do absolutely agree that everybody has to have something that they can believe in. It's pretty much right there, certainly in the big book, that and I look at it this way as a simple-minded person. I couldn't get sober on my own. Something intervened to help me get sober. And so, if for no other reason, that experience alone tells me that for others that want to try to get rid of their alcoholism, their addictions, and learn to live a better life, they absolutely have to have a belief in something greater than themselves. So, great topic to kind of close out on. That's about all I got for now.
So would you say that you like Dwight then?
He's tolerable. Dwight is a phenomenal young gentleman for 80 years old. And he does. You hit it on the head. He says what he's got to say, and there's not a whole lot of fluff along with it, and I appreciate that. Just tell it like it is.
That's right. Thanks, Brett. Brother T, what you got?
Oh, man. I tell you, spirituality is definitely one of the least favorite topics that we talk about. And it's probably, for me, one of the most important topics that I need to hear and need to talk about because, I say I grew up in a church for a small time, but it was all focused on religion. Whereas AA is focused on spirituality. And, when you hear a God of your understanding, that doesn't mean you have to have a Christian God. Like, my God is my God. And I'm not going to say who that is or anything like that. But, Alcoholics Anonymous is a global organization. So there are different places in the world that may not choose Christianity as their God. It could be, many different things, Yahweh, Buddha, whatever it may be. But the understanding that something greater than yourself is out there really has to be ingrained in your mind. Because for me, when I think about it, there is no way that something greater than myself is not out there that created, the flowers, the skies, the trees, the fish, all those different things. So when it came to spirituality, I thought that religion equated to spirituality, but then I found out quickly that it does not. I heard from a friend here that Gary S. that said, religion's for people that don't want to go to hell. Spirituality is for people that have been through hell. And, I have to believe that there is something greater than myself that is out there that can help me, help my family, help my friends get through tough times, get through the things that I'm dealing with, get through the things that, life throws us curveballs every single day. And if we try to fix the things in our head with the things that in our head, it's never going to work. We have to look at something that's higher than ourselves to be able to help us. And we have to believe in that. And, again, this is one of the worst topics for me because I still struggle with it. But I do believe there's something out there that's greater than myself. I do believe that there is a God. But for those that are, sitting out there listening, they're like, oh, great. There's a chapter in the A book called We Agnostics. The thing is, you don't necessarily have to believe right away. You just keep coming and listening and understanding that, you're in such a desperate, dark situation that you can't physically get yourself out of. There has to be something else out there that can help you pull out of that hole. Pull yourself out of that pit, because you can't do it yourself. There's got to be that helping hand that pulls you out. And for me, that's got to be my God, because I couldn't do it myself. No one else around me that's a human could do it for me. So I have to believe that there's something else out there that can help me achieve sobriety. Yeah, I don't know. That's just what I think. You can leave it or take it.
Good stuff, man.
Good words, and I appreciate those words. I am very grateful for this recovery program because I'm able to identify with so many sides of this topic. Coming into this thing, like I've shared before and I've shared on other shows, I really didn't have a relationship or a concern with a higher. It just didn't matter to me. I just take it or leave it. And, I came into recovery and learned from so many people. Well, I wasn't looking for a higher power. It wasn't even on my agenda. And I grew friendships with people from so many cultures, races, religions. Now, I particularly identify as a Christian, and I love this program because I came into Christianity after my introduction to recovery. And I'm glad I did, because and I by no stretch is this show ever out to offend anyone. That's not our platform. But I have met people in the faith that I share that vehemently disagree with people in recovery that are not said Christians. I've met Christians that are not in recovery that don't believe in, going through a 12-step program. And I don't argue. I'm not one to argue. It's just I like to listen. I hear people's point of view, but if they're argumentative, then I don't think they're really open to chatting about alternative thoughts. So, and I think most of us in here know a couple of people in the program they're atheist. And I have no problem with that at all. In recovery, and I say this from, again, not trying to offend anybody, from a Christian perspective, I'm not allowed to judge anybody. Now, I will tell you that coming into the program, I did judge immediately. I judged a book by its cover. I met somebody, I sized them up immediately. What are they made of? All those kinds of things. And this program has taught me, and again, it's, from a perspective of just being a human being maybe, but my higher power that I do choose to call Christ, but not jam it down anybody's throat, is I'm supposed to respect and love everybody and maintain their dignity. And I'm not trying to change anybody. That's not my job. I don't have that kind of power. You know what? I discovered in my own journey that a higher power got me into recovery and I didn't know it. I'm in recovery now and I know it, who my higher power is. That was my conversion. And I say that because, again, we're not trying to turn anybody off, but we all know people of different cultures. Heck, I've listened to a speaker not too long ago, kind of has a Hindi background, and I was just fascinated by it. And I wasn't judging it. I admired the journey that this individual went through, admired what was shared in the recovery toolbox, the immersion this individual has. Those are the things that I want to hear. I want to hear the similarities. If I'm turned off by a difference, I don't want to focus on that. I don't want to shut somebody down because something they said, oh, I just totally disagree with that. So anything else you say is not going to matter. I don't want to be one of those guys because I think then I'm missing out on a nugget. And my journey is really about looking for something that's going to help me in my growth. What can, the tribe offer me in my toolbox? What can guest speakers have? What can other podcasts that I listen to? What can I do to grow my recovery and therefore be able to identify with people? Because I really, again, not trying to offend anybody, but I don't care what somebody's faith is. I have absolutely no concern with that at all. If they are hurting and they're at the bottom of the barrel, and the only way out for them is, a finality, I care. And I'm not, the last thing I'm going to do is try to jump in and sear a cross on their forehead. I want to pick them up and say, hey, I'm there with you, man. Where do we got to go? What do we got to do? This is a human being we're talking about. So you out there in the world listening to this podcast right now, remember, if nobody's told you they love you today, we love you. Love you just the way you are, and we'll do anything we can to provide tools to you. Just keep listening to the show and see where we can go with that. Again, I want to remind you of the website, shoutoutfromthepit.com, and some of the things we said before the break, and I'll just hit on this real quick. We're going to do a show, shout out to mom, so go to the website. Hit that phone number up and leave a message for your mom. We're going to do a collage of those things and then actually have a show on it here in the future. Other things we'd like you to do is email us, whether you do it on the message board at the website or you go to team@shoutoutfromthepit.com and share with us some topics. Maybe share with me your journey. And if you're willing to come on the show, say so. And the final thing is we want to start doing shout-out inspirationals. So, again, go to the website, hit that phone number up, and leave a shout-out inspirational that we can do to all of our subscribed members. I like a lot of the feedback that we're getting, and I appreciate y'all out there in the world with your positive comments and your ideas to help make the show better. We do listen to those. Really appreciate it. And if you have resources that are not on our website and you'd like to share those, just leave those on the message board so we can vet them and put them out there for folks. So any closing thoughts, guys?
Yeah, so there's one thing I wanted to say. I haven't told this to a lot of people, but I used to be addicted to soap, but now I'm clean.
And all God's people said,
And on that note,
hallelujah.
You need to go over there and throat punch him.
Yeah. I was like, whoa, this is about to get really emotional here.
My nephew shared with me last week. As you guys know, my I call her mom because she raised me, which is my stepmother, and he was sharing a memory where Nana, they call her Nana, used to wash their mouth out with soap. Mom never did that to me. Maybe it's something she developed later in life, but she would wash the kids' mouth out with soap when they used ill language. And Josh, you remember how tiny she was. I can't even imagine. I can't imagine her wrestling these kids down. And my nephew said, yeah, she stopped when we started blowing bubbles. All right, guys, we're at the end of the show. And again, man, we appreciate y'all listening. And you know, to the tribe here, Tony, Dwight, Brett, Josh, you bless me, you know, by being my friends and part of my family. I'm a better man today because of guys like you. And thanks for coming on and sharing your thoughts, you know, with folks out there. And as always, folks, we hope you're having an outstanding recovery day. Until next time, this is the Old Rucker. Peace out.
Adios.